Okay, now that we have our project all organized, we have, for this example, a composition project folder made, and then all the video assets are here in this footage folder inside the project folder. Pretty soon we're going to be working with sound, so I'll make a new folder called sound and place all those assets here. And whatever else, like if I had still images, you can make a folder called stills, or logos, you can make a folder called logos. It's not necessary to organize this way, but it is super helpful. And if you're ever in a situation where you're working collaboratively and you need to hand this project off to someone, they will be extremely grateful at how organized you've been. Anyways, so let's go ahead and start Adobe Premiere. All right, when Premiere opens, we're met with this window here. You log in over here. Over here we have New Project, Open Project, Home and Learn tabs. If we're doing team projects or opening a Premiere Rush project, that's down here. If you've been working on files already, then your recent files are going to be here under the recent list. We're just going to go to New Project. All right, so we're met with this dialog box that gives us the ability to name our project and then give it a location. For this example, we're doing the composition project, so I'm going to call it composition project. And I'm going to select the composition project folder that we just made. I know that's on my desktop. There's the folder. And I don't need to put it in the footage folder. I want it to live next to the footage folder. So I will click select. Cool, we're not going to engage with any templates. And then down here are two very important things. So here, this gear is, we can jump into far more specific and technical and powerful settings for this project. We don't need to now, but as you work more and more with Premiere and you really like it, you might find that you want to jump into color management, you want to assign scratch disk space, or even ingest is an automated pulling footage off of camera cards through a certain setting into your workspace. So we're not going to use any of these right now, but that's where it is. And then import mode, I usually skip import mode, but I'll show you what it is, and then from then on you can decide if you want to skip it or not. So if we do not skip import mode, then once we click create, this is import mode. So for import mode, it lets us navigate to the folder where our footage is, and we can jump in and organize our media a certain way. We can copy media a certain way. We can create a new sequence. All these things are ways of filtering footage into your project at the very beginning. I usually don't use this window, and here we can click skip if we want, and it brings us to our default view in a empty Premiere project. Now I'm going to close this real quick, and I'm not going to save it. Gross way. And we're going to open Premiere again, and I'm going to show you how it is if we skip import mode. It basically just skips that one panel. All right, so here we are. We've just opened Premiere again. We're going to click on New Project, and this time we're going to click Skip Import Mode. We'll give it a name, Composition Project. We're going to put it in that folder. It's on the desktop, Composition Project, select. And now we're going to say Skip Import Mode and click Create. And it takes us straight to this window. And I think this is, for the size of projects that we're working with, this might be the fastest. Now your panel layout might look a little bit different than mine since I've been using mine. We do have under Window and Workspaces, we can select different panel arrangements. I'll talk about this more in a little second. But the first thing we're going to do is we can see down here in the lower left panel, we have the project panel. And so mine says project : composition project, because that's the one that we're working on. So we can click import media to import our media if we want, or the fastest way to do it is just to go back to your desktop, drag this over, go back to the desktop and just drag the folder into your project and then let go. And what it's done is it's made a folder, or Premiere calls it a bin, with the same organization as my Finder organization. Now, if I add any more assets later on, so like if I had a sound folder, I could also drag that in. If I had a new footage file. So like I recorded some more video. I would copy it from the camera into this folder and then drag, so say this is a new one, then I would drag this into the footage folder in Premiere and let go. So always stay super, super organized. Anyways, this is the default Premiere workspace. Yours might look a little bit different. I think actually the default is going to be, it might be learning if you open it for the first time. So yours might look like this, or it might look like editing. But this is generally what it's going to look like when you start a new project. And you'll see that pretty much every panel is for the most part empty, except here in this lower left quadrant, in the project tab, we have a folder. Remember, these are called bins in Premiere, called footage. And if I twirl this down, you can see all of your clips in there. And your view might actually not be list view, your view might be icon view. So it might look like this. I like to work in list view, but icon view when I first get started, digging through my footage is sometimes helpful because you can actually see previews of everything once my machine decides to load those previews up. There we go. Cool. And again, we can see these clips that are vertical orientation. Those are going to be rotated to be horizontal orientation. They just look vertical because my phone was confused about which way it was up, because they were either pointed straight down or pointed straight up. So real quick, let's take a look at some of the general workspaces in Premiere. So I've already talked about the project tab down here, but we have our media browser tab, the libraries tab, info, effects, markers, history. If there's too many tabs for the space of a window, then it has this little like double arrow thing that pops out. I'm gonna go back to our project tab. That's what I use most down here. Up here, we have our source viewer and effect controls tab. This is what I use most often up in the upper left hand. So the source viewer shows you, you can play through and scrub through your source audio and video files. Your program viewer shows you what you're working on in the edit. And then down here, we have the timeline, and it says no sequences. So sequences are our timeline workspace. So whatever we're working on in our timeline, that shows up in our program viewer directly above it here. And then sandwiched between these two lower windows is our toolbar. These windows can be open and closed, to do whatever you want. And so it's kind of easy to get lost or accidentally rearrange them. So these windows and preset orientations of these windows are stored under the window menu within workspaces. And so what workspaces has done is it's broken out groupings of these windows in ways that Premiere thinks you'll need them if you're working on these things. So if you're working on an assembly edit, or if you're working on audio, or if you're working on captions or graphics, if you're doing color correction, if you're just editing, if you're applying effects, all these are going to bring up different combinations of these windows. So like if we go to color, you see now it's quickly rearranged the panels. Most of the stuff is still here. Effect controls is now highlit by default. We still have our program and timeline, but everything was made a little bit smaller to make space for the Lumetri color panel, where all the color correction happens. If we go back to window, say we're working on effects, now it automatically opens the effects menus over here. So anyways, if you ever find, let's really mess this up. I'm gonna close my program viewer. I accidentally closed my timeline. Whoopsie daisy, I pulled my project tab somewhere else. Now my audio meters are huge. I've really gone and messed this up, right? I really have no idea how to get stuff back. Well, you could call back specific windows under window and just open them or close them directly from this entire list. Or most often what I do is just go to workspaces and select the workspace I want to use. So if I go back to editing, where we were, There we go. Now all the stuff is back to where I expect it to be. This is the workspace that I mangled earlier. So I actually want to reset to the default version of effects, not the one that I mangled. So I'm going to go to Window, and if you ever get into a workspace that you've made changes to and you can't get it back, go to Window, Workspaces, and then select Reset to Saved Layout. Okay, so now that I've created my new project and imported the video assets I wanted to use, now let's get started with editing it. Remember when I was creating a new project and Premiere asked me if I wanted to create a new sequence, and I said no, no thank you. That's because there's a bunch of other ways to create sequences, but the important thing is that the sequence, the editing space where you're editing your video, it's important that those settings match the settings of your footage. We can create editing workspaces for our video in any number of settings, some significantly higher quality and some significantly lower quality, but that's not necessarily interesting to me in this specific case, because if we create a sequence that is in lower quality than the footage that we shot, then we'll be losing quality. And if we create a sequence that is in higher quality than the higher quality video settings than the footage that we shot, well, video is not going to spontaneously, create higher quality. The clips I filmed are only going to be as high quality as they are right now. Like, they're not going to get any better. They can get worse, but they're not going to get any better as far as resolution or detail. And so I just want to generate a video editing workspace or a sequence with the settings of the footage that I shot. Now I have one very important choice to make. I do not want to create a video editing workspace with video settings from a vertical clip. I want to do a horizontal video to match the screens, like a TV screen or a computer screen or a movie screen. So I need to create a sequence that looks like this. So there's a couple ways to do it. We could right click and we can go down to new sequence from this clip. Or even faster, we can just click and drag this clip down into the timeline window, and you can see that the cursor now has like a closed hand with a plus sign. So that means it has that clip in its hand, and if I let go, that plus sign means it's going to create a new sequence. So I let go, and here we go. So now our sequence window is no longer empty, now it has a timeline. That clip that I dropped into the timeline. And this up here, you'll see that this is the name of that clip. This is actually the title of this sequence, this working space. And if you look over here, you can see that the little icon down at the bottom looks a little bit different. So this little icon has like 3 blue bars. Those are representing the video and audio tracks. Whereas these, there's a picture, obviously, and then there's a little sound wave. So this is saying this is video with sound, but this is a sequence. So I don't want to get us confused. So I want to rename this thing our first sequence. So I'm going to call this composition. I can spell composition project sequence 01. And that now lives down here. And I'm actually going to pull this out of my footage folder. So click and hold and drag, and I'm going to drop it into my project tab. So I can close the footage folder, bin, sorry. And there's my sequence. Actually, I'm going to rename this because it's too long. So I'm going to change it from composition project to composition.01. Cool. And there's our footage folder. And now you'll see in our timeline window, the sequence is now titled composition.01. And there's a reason that I called it .01. It's because as I work, I like to version up my sequences. Say I've spent hours working on this, and I'm about to make sort of a large decision. Like I'm going to take the edit in one direction, and I'm not 100% sure about that. And I want to be able to come back to how the edit is at this moment. So I'm going to right click on this sequence. I'm going to select duplicate. Here we go, composition 01, copy 01. I'm just going to rename this to composition.02. Now if I open this sequence, the editing space, you can see that the sequences can be tabbed in the timeline window. So you can have multiple sequences open at once, and you can navigate them just like a tabbed browser, like Chrome or Safari. This is a great way to check out, try out alternative edits. Maybe you've got decisions made on one or another. Yeah, however, this is just a fantastic resource to make some edits and then potentially navigate backwards in time to a different set of choices that you made as you were working on it. Cool. We actually don't need this quite yet. I just wanted to show you how to duplicate sequences and have multiple timelines open at once. So I'm going to delete this sequence by clicking on it and hitting delete on the keyboard. Great.